tell me if Latinos aren't the most successfully colonized, considering they are voting people in that continue to hurt our community, all for their proximity to whiteness, because for some reason they believe that that's upward progression when a white man's leadership has never led us to liberty. They believe that they are Christian and Catholic by choice. And it's not by choice. It's by observational knowledge and colonization. The people around them were Christian and Catholic. They believe that their religion is the optimal religion and will not study other ones because that goes against their primary quote unquote belief. But it's not their belief. It was the colonizers' belief, because when the Spanish came with the Bible in one hand and a gun in another. And in order to successfully colonize a group, you need to do a couple of things. One, remove their language. They've made us believe that Spanish is our own tongue, which is why we mock people saying, tienes el nopal en la cara, you don't speak Spanish, not even knowing that that term is also derogatory to mean you look indigenous and you don't speak Spanish. The words of the oppressor. You and I also speak bastard Spanish, not authentic Spanish. A lot of our Spanish is mixed in with indigenous words. And if you go to Spain, they will let you know that.
Why do some Latinos want to be white so bad? Now, this is a question that a lot of communities tend to ask about the Latinos. Now, while I don't have an answer for the full Latino community, I do have an answer for the Mexican community. Let's take it back to the 1500s when Hernán Cortés invaded Tenochtitlan, modern day Mexico. And something you need to understand is that it wasn't just Españoles getting off those boats. It was also African slaves. When Cortés and his men took over modern-day Mexico, they implemented what is called the caste system. Have you ever heard the phrase mejorar la raza? Yeah, it comes from that. Mejorar la raza means to better the race. Better the race means marrying white. And that was implemented over 500 years ago. And yeah, sure, it was 500 years ago. We should get over it and stop being so colorist, classist, and racist. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of the generations are trying to break this or have broken this type of mentality. Meanwhile, you still have the older generations who do think this way, because we still had Españoles and a lot of other European countries come to Mexico during the early 1900s. And these Europeans would walk down wherever there was indigenous or Afro-Mexican and look down upon them, calling them racial slurs like indios, prietos. Have you ever heard indio bajado del cerro? That's a racial slur for our indigenous people, because the more indigenous you are, the more away you were from the city, the less class and education you had, and you were considered lower than everybody else. Again, leading back to the caste system, even though it's 500 years later. So why is this still happening and it's 2025? The older generation of Mexicans did go through a lot of prosecutions. Mexican Repatriation Act that happened in the 1920s, Operation Wetback that happened in the 1940s, the wet lines along with the lettuce protests that happened in the 1960s, and even though time and time we've seen again that Mexicans uniting with the Black community, it's a lot of things done, it's still part of the system to be racist against anybody that is darker than you. And if you're dark, they teach you to go lighter, to aim to be lighter. So if you marry somebody that's lighter than you or white, you're saved. Now, again, I want to emphasize that this is not everybody in the Mexican community. A lot of people have been breaking this mentality, especially in the country of Mexico. The country of Mexico has been more accepting to our indigenous people and our Afro-Mexicans. Mexico has always been a melting pot when it comes to different nationalities and ethnicities. That's why many people are trying to break this thought process that was implemented again over 500 years ago by colonizers. So if you see a Mexican with this type of mentality, it's a colonization mentality that they still have yet to break. This is why it's important to speak on the history that the colonizers tried to erase, to educate one another so the next generations to come know where they come from and they stay united. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below.
Hey guys, welcome back again to my YouTube channel. It's so good to have you. Thank you so much for clicking when you saw this video. So most of these Latinos actually felt their palm, okay, and now their own people are the ones coming out to call them out because they felt their palm, and that's the reason why a lot of them vote against their own interest on a daily, okay. Each time there's an election, most of them continually vote against their own interests. And now that whole deportation is happening in their community, they're looking for help from here and there, forgetting that quite a number of them voted against their own interests and for whatever thing that is currently happening in their community. Lots of them are calling out on Black people for help, forgetting that these people actually voted for their interests, but most of their own community members chose to vote against their interest. Well, I'm going to let the rest of the videos roll, then I'll come back with more commentary. Credit to all creators on this video. Please do well to like and subscribe. Let's go watch.
You will never be white. As much as you, a fellow Latino, wants to be in proximity to whiteness, you will never be white. You will never be chosen in that way. As much as you think that you are better than undocumented Latinos because your family came here the right way, or because you're second generation or third generation, or because you either forgot or unaware of the foundation of this country and the fact that immigrants from Europe came here, stole the land from indigenous people, and then literally stole people, and forced them to be slaves, forced them to do labor. So when you think that you want to be in proximity to whiteness because you consider yourself better, think about that. Think about that there is internalized racism in our own community, how there is anti-blackness in our own community, how there is colorism in our own community. Think about those things, because no human being is better than the other because they think that because they have papers that they are better than another human being. A human being is a human being. There is no alien. There is no illegal when it comes to the world, okay? So let me remind you that you will never be white. Oh my gosh, who said that? Who said it? Who said that?
Latinos, doesn't matter where you are, Mexico, Cubanos, Argentina, everything, any kind of Latino you can possibly think of, always have thought that the lighter skin you are, the closest to proximity of white that you can be. And the unfortunate part is most Cubans are light-skinned, so they always think that they get a free fucking pass because they're somehow light-skinned enough, but they're never white-skinned enough. And not to mention that Cuba was a fucking dictatorship country, so it makes perfect sense that they want some fascist leader to go ahead and run the country. And not to mention they were colonized by Spain, and they have colorism like a motherfucker. And the internalized racism that they have, because Afro-Cubanos will literally say that they are white without like hesitating at all. I mean, I lived in New York for a very long time, and the Cubanos who think that they're literally white are fascinating to me because they literally feel as if they are the exception to the rule, but yet they do not know that obviously they were enslaved by Spain, and that they're not only Latino, but most of them are Afro-Cubanos or Afro-Latinos. So like, it's just fucking wild. That's why.
As a Latina woman, I will never understand the need to have a proximity to whiteness in the Latino community. First of all, colorism is absolutely rampant no matter where you go with Latinos. You know, I grew up with it. One time when I was little, I came back from Cancun and I had like a tan, and my grandma made me start scrubbing myself so that I could get rid of that tan. On top of that, I've been told by both my grandmas that I need to mejorar la raza. But I was dating my ex, who was very morenito. I got into a really big fight with my aunt because she was like, Kelly, don't you want somebody with colored eyes? Don't you want somebody with lighter skin? What about your kids? Your kids are gonna come out dark. And like, my sister is like 5 shades darker than me. That was one of the biggest fights my aunt and I got into because, you know, my sister, my everything. And if my sister ever at any point begins to feel insecure about her skin color because our family members can't keep their fucking bullshit to themselves, and you know, I've had to have the talk with my sister, who's a lot darker than I am, about the fact that there are going to be people out there that do not like her simply because of her skin color. And it is so difficult to try to explain why that is to a child. Luckily, we live in a Latino community, so it's purely Latinos everywhere, and they're like all the same color as her. But at the end of the day, you know what I mean? Like, it makes me sad to have this conversation with her. My grandma always used to tell me to marry or date a white man because they're going to take care of me and make sure that I'm like, you know, set for life. But at the end of the day, like both the kids that married white men, one of them has to deal with racism from extended family members who say that she's only with him because of his money. My other aunt, she's married to a bigot and has become a bigot herself. On top of that, one thing I noticed is that white people have no problem moving far, far away from their families. Like, they will move states over, maybe even countries over. And, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but it is just an observation because a lot of my Latina family members who married white men have picked up everything and left because of their husbands, you know, pushing them to do that, to pick up and basically leave everything behind so that they can, like, start a new life in a different state. And then I hear complaints, specifically from these Latina women, like, oh, I miss my family, like, oh, I hate not being around the family, but, you know, he wanted us to move.
So because they are people of color, one would think that they would tilt towards more Democrat than, you know, conservative. But a lot of them decided that, you know what, let's also move towards conservative, okay? Forgetting where they are coming from and the reason why they came out in the first place. And forgetting the people who helped them, okay, to have laws that protect them and has kept them in the country. Well, let's take a look at the comment section. This one said, my great-grandfather was Mexican-American. When he married my black great-grandmother, his Mexican family, okay, disowned him. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? This is the ideology that most of them grew up with. Okay, I took a little class called Critical Race Theory in law school that taught the psychology and local and social reasons for the honorary white people mentality, but you all government don't want you all to learn anything. Many Cubans tend to forget or not even know that Cuba is really diverse. There is Afro-Cubans, Chinese Cubans, and indigenous Cubans, especially in Eastern Cuba. And a lot of Cubans are really ignorant and conservative. Not all Cubans are like this though, okay, coming from a Cuban. Okay. Right, this one said, I experienced people from Brazil saying they have no Africa ancestors. Okay, after I asked them about Africa, we're darker than them, This was in Paris. I'm a Naya living in Europe. So this one said, to be fair, Latino, Hispanic is not a racial group. You can be Asian, black, white, native, or mestizo. Okay. Well, another person said, when I take demographic information at my job, asking what race, ethnicity, and so forth, 99.99% of Hispanics say they are white. Very confusing. Very, very confusing. Like, I feel that a lot of them actually thought they are white, and that's why they chose to, vote the way they all did. Because Cubans didn't mean they are either white, like 100% European DNA, or they are black. That's why they are white. I was just talking to a Cuban last week who told me I'm a whole white man who is he is living in Kentucky. This one said it's conditioning, just like white people were conditioned to think they were superior. Okay, so the colonizers created the census to separate us by skin color. There were black natives, Mexicans, Cubanos, etc. Once the census, okay, started, anyone with dark skin become a Negro. That's the Atlantic slave trade database. Literally shows you where they picked up and dropped off all slaves from 1717, the late 1800s. Okay, anyone that doubt should go look for themselves. Okay, this one said these people run to America from this same mess, and now they voted for the same thing they run from. Okay, and said at this point they need to go back to Cuba and make it better for them. They have all this energy fighting with the American people for what they want, but can't fight the Cuban government so they can stay in their own country. What they did to Black Americans is ashamed. How are they allowed to come to someone else's country and treat them so badly? They are in this country on the backs of Black Americans. If they don't like them, they leave and go back to the country they love so much. They are taking Black Americans tax dollars now and running back there on vacation. Well, so many people just have a lot to say about how these people actually chose to vote against their own interests, and people are just wondering, why would anyone even decide that, what, the best would be for us to vote our own against our interests in the first place? People are just wondering. So another video, comment section of another video, this one said, Latinos likely don't want to be white, but the power of whiteness entices many to perpetuate racist behaviors towards other minorities to attain favor amongst whites. Wow. Wow. This one said, having been surrounded by Latinos my entire life, not a single one of them associated as white, and they know white people don't view them as whites as well. Okay, one of the most racist speech ever. Everyone wants white identity. That's pure racism. Okay, superiority complex and historical. Okay, whatever. People don't understand the resilience of whiteness. Black people are playing the short game, while white people are, playing the long game. Divide and conquer. Okay, increase the race and demonize the Mexican race. Black people have never recovered from this paper bag ideology. Wow. So this one said, the human categories, white people and black people, were invented by the Western European elite. They authored discrimination, baited racism for control, and to continue their uncontested power. Okay, I think a lot of people have actually been saying this, because even when you give birth to children, they don't even know what white or black is until you start sowing the seed in them, and before you know it, they say, oh, he's white, oh, he's pink, he's this, so yeah, I'm sure that a lot of them have learned their lessons now. But do you also think that in the next election you give them this and that, they're not going to choose whatever they chose now? I'm sure that you all know the answer. Well, let me know what you all think in the comments. Do well to like and subscribe, and credit to all creators on this video. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. See you all next time.